Hey, all you Splinterheads, welcome back. Bronze Dragon here with a land update of sorts. I'm going to jump right in, first of all, and say that I've been out for a week, mostly not making videos because I've had COVID. Um, I'm happy that this is the first time I've caught it since COVID began, and I am up to date on my shots and everything, but that's another story. Anyway, it took me down. I'm glad that it wasn't too bad. It struck me kind of like a really heavy-duty cold, but it didn't, it didn't take me out too far. I've been working from home for the last week, and my voice has been kind of coming and going. And if you were on my live stream on Saturday, you know that my voice by the end of it was just kind of gone. So, but it was a great live stream. So thanks to everybody that showed up. I appreciate that. The live streams seem to be more and more populated. So we got a lot of things to talk about. If you want to drop by my live stream, it's Saturday mornings Eastern time at 11:30 to 12:30. So we usually go for an hour, and we usually talk about Splinterlands mostly, but other Hive blockchain games as well, and once in a while some other card-related and game-related things in there as well. So stop by if you have time. So anyway, with that, I want to go ahead and jump in because Matt had released this morning. This is the Phase 2 Land White Paper Part 3. And yes, I know I'm behind by 2 parts because I've been sick, but I want to go ahead and jump in and talk about this one and then kind of backtrack. We've got plenty of time. Land 2.0 won't be here for quite some time, but we've got some time to talk about it. And as Matt has said several times, this is kind of like a working copy. Things will change, but a lot of good information has been released today. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about it. So, and we may refer back to the prior 2 posts because the first post of the white paper released a diagram of how everything works, from the materials produced to the buildings and what they produce, and it was basically a flow chart, right? So the second went through what materials each type of land produced, and then that led right into this part 3, which is the buildings. So let's go ahead and jump in. This may be a little bit of a lengthy video. I'm not known for my short videos. I've tried to reduce them, but I try to pack them with as much information and commentary as possible. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look. I'm going to read through some of this and then comment on it with my brief thoughts as we go along. So this is a Phase 2 white paper buildings, and then the first paragraph, they list, what the first 2 parts of the white paper had already been released, and that coming up, it will be the 4th and final part. So let's go ahead and dive in and say, one building may be constructed on each player-owned land plot within the continent of Praetoria. The plot owner may choose which building to construct on their land plot, except for plots with castle or keep buildings, from the list of buildings available based on the land, terrain type, and available resources. And they're getting ready to give us this list as well. There are 3 types of buildings: resource production, resource refinement, and resource storage building. Further details are coming up. So constructing a building will require a specified amount of certain resource, as well as DEC and or vouchers, and will require a specified amount of production to complete, provided by the worker cards on the plot. This is very similar to how we cleared land and produced these other, I don't want to say they're buildings because they were not referred to as buildings, what we're using currently in 1.5. Only the base production of the worker cards on the land plot will apply for building construction. Boosts such as titles, totems, and runes will not affect the building construction production. Time crystals may be used to speed up the building construction at a rate of 10K production, same thing that was used before. Additionally, each building will be able to be upgraded 10 different levels, and this idea is going to go basically over all 3 different building types. You're going to be able to increase the level of each building 10 times, and it gets better and better as you increase it, but it costs more to upgrade it. Upgrading a building will work the same as constructing a new building in that it will require a specified amount of resources and DEC, as well as a specified amount of production from workers to complete. Time crystals will be able to be used. So this is telling me they're building a lot of costs into this. So as I'm reading along in here, there are more and more costs involved in upgrading your property, your buildings on your property. However, with each increase, it should be hopefully worth it because you're making more. Your production, you're either mining more or producing more out of the land, or you're taking and constructing something out of other resources. So let's go ahead and keep going. Resource production, which is the first type, buildings will only be constructed on land plots which contain the appropriate resource. So if you want to produce, let's look at this list here. If you want to produce grain, you're going to have a plains, river, bog, or lake. It stands to reason. For example, well, they go ahead and give a few examples just like I did. All resource production buildings also contain a relatively small amount of storage space for food, resources, as well as the resource that they produce. All resource production buildings have a total of 10 different levels, once again, and as they level up, the amount of resources produced per unit of production increases along with the amount of storage space provided. In the case of the mine building, there is also increased chances of finding higher rarity ores at higher levels. And Matt talked about this on a prior town hall in the fact that there are not multiple types of mines. There's just one type of mine that you're going to level up. And as you level up, you have an increased chance of finding the higher rarity ores. Basically, that's how it's going to work. As resource production buildings will require worker cards to operate, the amount of resources produced per unit of time will be affected by the following factors: the production, the PP of the worker cards, the level of the building, the rarity of the land plot, and boosts such as titles, totems, and runi. Now, keep this in mind. I'll point this out, that this is the only situation where the rarity of the plot is going to come into play. On the other two situations, if you use your land, put the other two buildings that we're getting ready to cover on the land, the rarity does not take into account. Now, there are a few things they have not released yet, and we'll go over the other ones, but I just wanted to point that out. So right up front, it almost looks to me that if you have a higher rarity plot, it might be best to use it for resource production. That may change when more information is released, however. We'll look at the different types of buildings, and you can see the resources which were released prior. You have the farm that produces grain. I'm not going to read through all these. You can look at the list. I'll leave a link to all these articles in the show notes. But like I said, plains, river, bog, and lake, you can build a farm on. Logging camp gives you wood, swamp, forest, tundra, and jungle, and so on and so forth. And they have one for each of the magical essences. You will see that, well, I guess they're not essences. They have separate names for each type. The essences is actually a thing produced on the outpost, which is on occupied land, which is a completely separate thing. So anyway, you can take a look at that list, and we're all going to be in the situation of kind of looking at these lists that he just released and kind of getting an idea with our plots how we're going to do it. Okay, so the second type of building is resource refinement. So on this type of building, you're not actually pulling something out of the ground or chopping something down or mining something, whatever it may be. You are actually taking raw materials, whether you produce those materials on other parts of your property, on other plots of land, or whether you're buying them off of somebody else on the market. You're taking those materials and you're producing something. So in this manner, you totally could have a few plots of land and decide, I'm not even going to harvest anything. I'm just going to produce two or three. I might just want to produce something. So I'm buying everything off of somebody else. Now, in that case, you would still have to pay for food for all your workers. So you're buying food off somebody to keep your workers going, and then you're buying 1, 2, or 3 other materials from other people on the market, but you're producing another material that is needed for the market, and you sell that, and then you keep the whole operation going. It's much like kind of the idea of keeping a regular business going in real life, okay? So that's basically what resource refinement is about. They can be built now in this case. Resource refinement buildings can be built on any property of type of land, except for a castle or keep. And once again, all resource refinement buildings also include a relatively small amount of storage for all the input and output resources involved, including food. Okay. Once again, 10 different levels of building. As you level up, the efficiency gets better. The refinement process increases along with the amount of storage space provided. In the case of the foundry building, higher levels will unlock the ability to refine higher rarity ores, and the lapidary building will have higher chances of producing higher quality gemstones. So once again, this is the whole idea, like going back to if you're mining ore from a piece of land, the higher level mine gets a higher percentage chance of getting the higher quality ores. Same thing with the foundry building, the higher levels. So if you're mining higher quality ores, you're going to have a higher quality foundry to be able to process this ores, basically. Or like it says with the lapidary buildings, also higher quality gemstones will be produced from a higher quality or higher level lapidary. So this whole idea of leveling up to produce and manufacture higher quality goods makes sense. Okay. So all resource refinement buildings will require worker cards to operate. Everything requires workers, okay? The amount of resources produced per unit of time will be affected by the following factors. Once again, the worker cards, the level of the buildings, and boosts, okay? So that's going to be maintained basically right across the top for those two types. And once again, I'll point out, like I said earlier, please note the rarity of the land plot will not affect the rate of production from resource refinement buildings. So that tells me that if I'm going to make with this current information we have, that tells me that if I'm going to make a resource refinement building, I would best put that on a common plot of land, okay? Because the rarity of the land, higher rarities, are going to do me no good there, okay? So looking at the building types, we've got mill, sawmill, lithification site, foundry, laboratory, lapidary, runology tower, and alchemy lab. And once again, I'm not going to read through all these, but you can reference the chart and see, depending upon what you want to produce, it's going to show you a couple different things. It's going to show you what the outputs are and what the inputs are. So for instance, let's just take one for instance. Say for instance, I was interested in producing metal bars, okay? The first thing I would need is a foundry, okay? Now, the second thing I have to think about is how am I going to get my ores and my wood to produce my metal bars, okay? So this brings another question in. So you can either buy your ores and wood on the market, like I said before, or you can have other lands, another land that's producing your ore and another land that's producing your wood, to go to the foundry and then make the metal bars. So if you wanted to be all-inclusive there, say for instance, well, let's hold that thought until I get to the third type of building. The third type of building is what we've been talking about, and we were kind of going over in our Saturday morning stand-up, last live stream, talking about the kind of ruminating and guessing on the resource storage, since it wasn't, everybody's been talking about it, but it wasn't mentioned specifically in the prior article. Resource storage buildings can be built on any land plot, except those, once again, with a castle or keep building, and as the name implies, provides a significant amount of storage for the specified resource. All resource storage buildings will also contain a relatively small amount of storage space for food resources, which will be consumed by the worker cards, and for elixir, which can be earned by providing liquidity on the internal market. For buildings that allow the storage of multiple different resources, for example, the metal silo, which can store all different types of ores and metal bars, each unit of each different resource may require different amounts of storage space. And then they go on to give an example. For example, each unit of iron, the most common ore stored in a metal silo, will take far less units of storage space than a unit of mithril, the rarest ore. Even though iron may be physically larger than mithril, the more rare resources may require more specialized storage spaces to store them safely, which will be represented as requiring more units of storage space. Okay, so this is common in a lot of different games. Okay, so you may be familiar with different types of metal or wood in games taking up different amounts in your backpack, doing to be heavier, more rare, etc. like that. So this is the way they decided to go with it in this game. All resource storage buildings will require worker cards, once again, as well as a power source, a Rooney, and stake DEC. The amount of resources that can be stored will be affected by the following. Once again, the same three things. The production from the worker cards, the level of the building, the boosts. So this tells me if you want to store a lot, be able to store a lot more, whether you're doing it for yourself or whether you're doing it for somebody else and being paid to do it, you want to get as high level PP worker cards on there. You want to level up the building, and you want to slap some boosts on there, whatever you may have available to you. And once again, please note that the rarity of the land plot will not affect the amount of storage available from the resource storage buildings. More details about how storage will work will be included in the future white paper reveal post. So this tells me two different things. First of all, with the information we have right now, tells me that the resource storage will once again best be done on a common plot, provided there isn't anything comes out in the future like that last caveat sentence that says that the land plot rarity may affect it. So provided that doesn't happen, once again, the resource storage and the production and the resource refinement type building best put on a common plot. That's what the information I have now. So let's go ahead and skip back here. So this is very interesting to me because up to this point, we just had the idea of basically there was going to be storage. We didn't know, or I didn't know, there was going to be so many different types of storage. So this means that it's highly specialized, okay? Now, there are some on here, you look at the list, like granary, stone yard, metal silo, energy well, and crystal cavern all have 2 or 3 things that they can hold, but the rest of them, they can only hold 1. Now, to me, right off the bat, I guess the best thing, I don't know, right off the bat, I'm thinking that you would look at your region and you would look at most regions. Some regions are, let me say this, most regions, there's like 3 different main things in that region that you could see or produce. Like it's got a lot of, you would have a lot of lumber yards, or you'd have a lot of mountains or something like that. Then you would have to most likely specialize in storage for the most common material there. Of course, on the flip side, you could say, well, maybe some people, there's too many granaries, or there's too many lumber yards, and I need to build something else. Another thing that was another point that was pointed out, I think in the comments, is the fact that this is going to be an evolving process. It's not going to say it's not going to be something that stays the same. You're not going to be able to, if a lot of these things, you're not going to be able to just set it and forget it. Okay. In other words, the market is going to be constantly evolving, and you may get to the point, say you build a bunch of lumber yards, right? And you're harvesting lumber. You may get to a point where there's too much lumber on the market, so you need to roll over and change your buildings to do something else. Or maybe it gets to the point where you're better off just selling your wood raw as a resource. You're making more money that way. And the same idea with the storage. You may get into putting storage units up, basically, and you find that, oh, my storage units aren't renting out because there's too many people that have lumber yards available. So I need to switch over to something else that's another main product where people need a lot of storage within my region. So this is going to be an evolving process. Very interesting, however. Now, here's an item I had not even thought about, maintenance. And here's where they're building in another charge. Okay, so most games we play has some sort of wear and tear item, gameplay item, right? So things wear down, you have to pay to repair them. That's basically what this is. And there's a real world cost to it instead of just like in a regular game, a like a token you're earning in the game. But here it's a real world cost because theoretically we're making real world money, right? So I put that in air quotes. Okay. So every building, unless otherwise specified, will require resources to be expended to maintain the building at its current level on a monthly basis. So this is wear and tear. If you leave your building alone, don't do anything, you don't support it, you don't upkeep it, it's going to wear down over time. The maintenance cost will be a small percentage of the same resources required to upgrade the building to its current level and will vary based on the amount of usage of the building production over the course of the month. So the more you use it, the more production power you got out of it, the more you're going to pay to maintain it. The maintenance cost for a building can be paid at any time and can be paid for multiple months at one time. However, if the full maintenance cost for a building has not been paid for the end of a month, then by the end of the month, then the building will drop down one level. One problem I see there is there's going to have to be some kind of back-end math in there because, so for instance, say I have a building at 10,000 production points and I pay my maintenance cost for 3 months and I upgrade my production points to 15,000 or whatever, then my maintenance is going to go up. So there's going to have to be, I'm sure that they've already thought about this, but that just came out of my, I just thought about that when I was reading that. So when a building is upgraded to a new level or when it's first constructed, the maintenance cost for the first month will be part of the construction cost. You're going to pay that right up front the first month. So the maintenance cost is not going to kick in until the second month. If a building is upgraded, any maintenance costs that were paid in advance will be applied towards the maintenance costs going forward after the upgrade. Please keep in mind, however, that maintenance costs will be increased each time a building is upgraded. So as you upgrade your building, you're paying more maintenance as well. So not only are you paying more maintenance for having more production power, you're paying more maintenance for higher level building, which theoretically will increase your production power as well, other than, say, for instance, increasing your cards or putting a new title on there or something like that. It is planned that maintenance costs for a building will be proportional to how productive it is in the previous month, which is what I just mentioned. So that means a building that has 100K production on average for a month will have a higher maintenance cost than that same building with 10K production. Okay, makes sense. So here we go, which references back to what I was talking about the economy constantly evolving, the repurposing of buildings. The fact that there's such a diverse array of different resources and buildings that are part of the economy of Praetoria allows players to maximize the earning potential of their Praetorian business by finding and filling different niches within each region, territory, even the entire continent. We can expect that there will be many underserved areas in different parts of the continent which can present arbitrage opportunities for players. Buy low over here, transport it, sell it for higher over here. We're familiar with that whole idea, in various games. So that's interesting. Being able to repurpose buildings will allow players the flexibility to take advantage of those opportunities when they inevitably arise, and we expect this to be an important part of maintaining a liquid and balanced economy overall. Any player-created building can be repurposed into any other player-created building as long as the repurposed building is able to be built on that same land plot. Through a process similar to upgrading a building, this includes supplying a specified amount of various resources and assigning worker cards, and repurpose building over time. The cost and time required to repurpose a building will depend upon how different the new building is from the old one, but will always be far less than would be required to build a new building from scratch. Okay, and then they give an example. So now they go on and they finish up and they talk about castles and keeps producing trifoil ruins. Now this is an important part in the research. If you checked out the first drop of the whole process of research, you need trifoil ruins to do your research if you're going to do that. Now, the only place that can produce those are castles and keeps. So, as mentioned in the special resources section of the document, the trifoil ruins resource can only be obtained by workers in the castle or keep. Trifoil ruins are required resource for scholars to study in order to produce research tokens in the Runology Tower building, which are needed to unlock each phase of the ancient ruins reconstruction project. This makes owning a castle or keep quite valuable due to the fact that it is the only way to produce trifoil ruins. Like most resource production, the amount of trifoil ruins produced on a castle or keep building will be based upon the production of the worker cards, including all the normal boosts such as runi, totems, and titles, as well as the level of the building. Castles and keep buildings will have 10 levels, just like the other buildings, and they will also need to pay maintenance costs as with other buildings. Like most other resource production, the amount of trifoil ruins produced on a castle or keep building will be based upon the production PP of the worker cards, including all normal boosts such as runi, totems, and titles, as well as the level of the building. The castle and keep buildings will have 10 levels, just like the other buildings, and can be upgraded in the same way as the other buildings. Castle and keep owners will also need to pay maintenance costs like every other building, keep them from falling down in level, and trifoil ruin production dropping. So castles will also significantly have higher trifoil ruin production per level and worker production than keeps. So that's new information there. Please note that castle and keep buildings will provide storage space for trifoil ruins, as there is no specific storage building for those. Please also note that castles and keeps are still planned to collect a portion of the tax resources from all plots within the region or tract in the same way as they do currently in phase 1.5. Only the part about earning trifoil ruins was included here because that is that's the new part in phase 2. Okay, so the takeaway there is castle and keep owners will not have to worry about storage for their trifoil ruins, and castles will produce more trifoil ruins. Anybody who is going to do the research to produce research tokens will have to buy or trade for trifoil ruins from castle and keep owners to keep that part of the economy going. So yeah, it's very interesting. So I will leave the link in the show notes so you can go and check it out. I know this is a little bit more of a read through, but I did provide my thoughts on this. Kind of interesting. I'm still thinking with this much information, I'm still thinking that the best use of common plots is to use for resource storage or resource refinement. And other than that, unless there is a boost involved. Other than that, your rarer plots of land are probably best used at actually producing what you want or what you're trying to produce, or grain, wood, stone, ores, and then funnel them to either the market if you're not going to refine them, or to a plot of land that has a resource refinement building. Now, overall, this also goes back to a point we've been talking about trying to be semi-self-sufficient. Now, in my case, I was thinking about it, and if you were going to produce and wanted to be semi-self-sufficient, just like one thing, I would think that you would need at least one plot of land to do the production. You would need at least one plot of land to do the refinement, and you would need probably one plot of land for storage, and you would probably need like 3 plots of land for food production for those 3. So at very least, I'm thinking at least 6 plots of land is going to, and the food production is going to change, as you can see, but at least 3 plots if you're going to plan on buying the food off the market. But I would think at least 6 plots if you're going to produce your food, and then you're going to mine or harvest something, and then you're going to actually refine that. So, I mean, we're going to find out more along these lines as everybody discusses it more and everything. Like I said, this information just was released today. So leave in the comments if you have any thoughts on what I said, and hope everyone's out there, their family and everybody's doing happy and healthy, and I will see you on the flip side.